Greetings. That I'm Rudolf of Germany, the tall white alien, by now most of you should know. So in the future I will not introduce myself to the 200th and so much time over and over again in this fashion. Let's get straight to the subject of tonight. A few months back I made a video. It was called, I believe, Revelations 1. And that was the first time when I spoke about the economical situation and predicted very clearly and vividly a hyperinflationary scenario. Nobody in the press or even in the economical field and financial world ever thought of it or spoke about it back then. Today I was surprised to hear the first time some financial specialist speak about it in connection with the US-American leadership and their plans to bring down the dramatic debts which they are suffering under. Particularly the banks are being stressed heavily, and in connection also with the possibility of a global war, which all plays very comfortably and very practically into the hands of the globalists, which the American government consists of. If the United States is able to aggravate a war in the Near East and involve the Russian Federation into it, then they have already brought themselves quite close to their goal. First, what could be the advantages of a war for the American leadership? It is a multi-strategic operation. And now listen carefully, because what I'm saying now is not the talk of a crazy man or some alien who don't know what he's talking about. But it is exactly the plan the United States of America government, which as a frontman, Mr. Obama is showing his face for, has in store for you. If the United States government can draw Russia into a war, it has, number one, a legal opportunity to call the election off on November 11th in case Donald Trump becomes dangerously close to win the election and be the next president of the United States. You can always implement a state of emergency because of a military situation, because of a war which is raging, and the transition of power from one president to the next would be an added danger, an added complication to an ongoing war. So if a war at all can be inflamed in the Near East, and Donald Trump might look like the winner of the next presidential election, in that case there is always an argument which speaks for a delay of transition of powers in the White House. This would bring the group of globalists which run the affairs right now added time to act accordingly, to, on the long run, eliminate Donald Trump, number one, keep the power in their midst, and even leave Mrs. Hillary Clinton on the sidelines just in case they need her as an alibi later on to run, the same people of course, running the affairs further into the future. But since her health is not so well, this Mrs. Clinton can also take a good rest, because the administration will keep on functioning for a while longer with Mr. Obama. This war will rage on, and then there will be the possibility of blaming onto the war the collapse of the financial system, of the money system of the United States, and this way to basically create a new monetary system and erase, through the hyperinflation, which would be another leg in the game, the debt which the banks have. And the banks are the ones who basically run the Secret Service agencies, and the Secret Service agencies run the government. So basically the United States of America and the Western world is in the hands of the global bankers. And they couldn't care less if there is a war, international world war raging or not. Because if a world war is raging, they have, number one, the same people in place to run the affairs under the Obama administration. Number two, they could sell, of course, to their friends which have the weapon industry, sell enormous amounts of weapons and create more money for the banks themselves, and create a total breakdown of the money system to erase all the debts they have. And since the idea of the globalists has always been to minimize, to get rid of most of the human population, which exceeds about 7 billion at the moment, and come to the ideal number of about 500 million or 500 million humans on planet Earth, which are much easier to control. And this is a written goal of the globalists, which basically are the ones who do the external executive work for certain intergalactic forces, which consist of two different groups. A group of very ultra-conservative tall white aliens, which are my race, but I do not belong to this ultra-conservative group, as I've told you many times. And one more intergalactic group of aliens, which I'm not naming right here. Since the very beginning of this video series, I told you I will not tell anybody where we come from, what different intergalactic races are interfering in human affairs here on planet Earth. That I have to respect. But just globally I can tell you it is a very ultra-conservative group of tall white aliens and another group which share responsibility and give basically the bankers, the globalized bankers, a free reign over this place to straighten out the situation, get rid of most of the population, let the bankers get rid of all their debts, control globally the whole planet, and because the only person at the moment in the United States who could seriously endanger their ideas is Donald Trump, keep them at bay by creating an international war which calls for the stay of the American administration, which is basically run by the bankers, in place right now. There's nothing more than the tall white alien brotherhood and their bankers, their hybrids, which they are having in place on planet Earth, fear more than a person who is not an insider and will gain power, will be able to interfere with their affairs and their long planned actions, which are planned basically in some cases for several hundred years in advance. That's what they fear most, and that's what they absolutely will not accept. That some outsider, some populist, which is being voted in, maybe even by a high margin from the population, that this person is coming and destroy their plans. So, keep this in mind. The looming war is a multi-task, basically, is a situation which will solve several problems at once. First of all, block Donald Trump from becoming a president. Secondly, through the war, gain more power in the Near East, sell more weapons, which basically is also work and an interest of the bankers, and erase through either completely collapsing the monetary system or hyperinflation, erase all their debts, and lastly, get rid of most of the unnecessary populations of planet Earth which do not function in their interest and which are completely unnecessary for their survival and for their further plans. That was my message for today. Ponder it, that's the future. I have told you about the hyperinflation before anybody else did. Now you can hear several other people slowly, some economists, also catching up on it and getting the idea. Just look around and you see how the picture will develop. Rudolf of Germany.